Hey everyone! In this video I will show you how to make a low poly kurta in a retro PS2 style. First of all, you can download my sample model from the link I've put into the description or use your own. I will show you how I texture the models in a realistic style using image projection from photographs. If you're not interested in the modelling part, you can jump directly to the texturing chapter. As you can see, I also made saris in the same style. Make sure the color management is set to standard in the Render tab. By default, Blender uses the AGX color filter for both the viewport and final renders, which can cause issues while texturing. It will mess up your color picking from the viewport. First, we need to get some reference pictures, like these ones. I usually gather them from online clothing websites. You will need to have at least one with the model facing the camera. It's good if you can have pictures from the sides or the back, but it's not necessary for every style. We'll ignore them for this video. Let's jump into modelling. For the pants, you basically have to extrude the legs and smooth the vertices. For the kurta, you'll have to extrude vertices from the waist, then part them into a different object for the sake of convenience. This way, you won't have to worry about messing up the pants geometry when you edit the kurta vertices until they look right. If the smooth shading doesn't look right after you extrude or merge vertices, you can easily fix it by pressing Alt and N. First, choose Recalculate Outside, then press Alt and N and choose Reset Vectors. This does wonders to fix your vertex shading. I also wanted to transfer the weights from the pants to the kurta ahead of time, but we will have to rework them later anyway. Here I quickly unwrapped it so it's done for later. Now let's merge back the bottom part of the kurta with the main model by pressing Ctrl and J. Extrude the bottom part. This is important because one-sided geometry doesn't render properly in most render engines. In Unity, for instance, only one face will be rendered. Now let's bridge the vertices. It might look a bit off at first because some planes are overlapping. To easily remove the unwanted planes beneath the surface, start by hiding the top ones. Just select them and press H. Then delete the planes underneath. Once you're done, press Alt and H to unhide the geometry.
After some final adjustments done, we're ready to jump into UV unwrapping. We will mostly have to deal with kurta bottom parts because the rest of the model is already unwrapped. First, let's resize them to match the size of the other UV islands.
If you look at textures from older games, you'll often see overlapping UVs and varying texture resolutions. Artists had to work within strict texture size limits, so they prioritize which parts of a model received higher resolution. This is a key difference compared to how textures are handled in modern workflows. When overlapping the UVs for the front and back panels, it's important to make sure the borders of the UVs line up perfectly. To do this, select the corresponding vertices on each side and press S followed by 0 to align them. If the edges don't match, the texture might get cut off or misaligned on one side. Now that we're done with the UV editing, we can move on to the fun part, texture painting. First, we need to create a texture for the outfit. To do this, switch to the Shading tab and add an Image Texture node. Create a new texture for the kurta and set its alpha to 0. Next, connect both the kurta texture and the body skin texture into a Mix Color node. Use the alpha channel of the kurta texture as the factor to blend them properly. Before we start painting, I realized I forgot to model the kurta sleeves. It happens. We all get a bit distracted sometimes. To fix it, I added 2 loop cuts along the arms. To maintain symmetry, leave them at their default position by simply right-clicking after adding them. Then, slide them along the arm as needed. This method won't affect the existing UVs. Alright, now just make sure the kurta texture is selected, then head over to the Texture Paint tab to start painting. To start blocking out the texture, first select the polygons you want to colour red while in edit mode, then switch back to Texture Paint. Enable Paint Mask mode, and select the Fill tool, Paint Bucket. For reference, I use the bPainter add-on for texture painting. It's a paid add-on, but you won't need it to follow this tutorial. I textured for a long time without it. It just helps speed up the workflow with some handy presets. That said, it's a bit buggy, so I wouldn't strongly recommend it, especially at $40. Next, let's do the same for the white pants. Don't forget to save the texture by pressing Alt+S. Oops, looks like there's some UV overlapping here. Let's fix that. When we extruded the pants, it also distorted the UVs a bit. Extruding assigns flat UVs to the new faces, so you'll need to watch out for that. Alright, looking better now. Let's move on to the most important part, projecting a texture onto the model using a stencil brush. I already have a preset set up in bPainter, but you can create your own using a basic brush. It works just as well. Unfortunately, we can't load a texture directly from the Tool tab. Instead, go to the Texture tab in the Properties editor to add the image you want to project. Once you've selected it, go back to the Tool tab and assign it to your brush. It can be a bit confusing at first, but you'll get the hang of it. By default, the texture mapping is set to tiled. You'll need to change that to stencil for it to work the way we want. Make sure cursor is enabled, otherwise the stencil won't show up. Once you do that, the image will appear as an overlay. To move the stencil, hold right-click and drag. To scale it, hold Shift and right-click. To rotate it, hold Control and right-click. We can start painting the embroidery now. You can also use the stencil directly on the unwrapped texture, which helps avoid distortion. When projecting an image onto faces that aren't directly facing the camera, the texture can stretch or skew. While this distortion can sometimes be useful, it usually leads to messy results. Let's switch to another reference image to paint the size of the outfit. Don't hesitate to switch between different pictures often. It's a great way to add variation to your texture. You can also rotate and flip the images to get even more variety. To clean up your projection, make sure to use the airbrush or smudge brush. The smudge brush works especially well for drawing natural-looking folds in the fabric. When colour picking from the model, make sure you're in solid viewport shading mode with flat lighting and texture colours enabled. Alternatively, you can use a flat shaded material and stay in material preview mode to get a clean overview of the model. Don't worry about any leftover skin showing from the texture projection. We can easily clean that up later in Photoshop. You can also use the airbrush with different blending modes to adjust the colours and add subtle shading or volume to your texture. For the back design, feel free to improvise by projecting embroidery details from the front dress image. You can get some really nice results that way. Painting the pants was the trickiest part, mainly because of the delicate lace that needs to align properly across UV islands. If you need to duplicate parts of your texture, for example, to mirror a design, it's best to do that in Photoshop. You can open the texture externally by going to Image, then Edit Externally in the Texture Paint UI. After editing the texture in Photoshop, make sure to save the file, then reload the texture in Blender to see the updated version. Since the pants design features cute lace at the bottom, I decided to add some transparency. To do that, I had to slightly edit the mesh. While reviewing the video, I noticed I forgot to duplicate the lace faces and flip the normals. That step is important if you want the lace to be visible from both sides in a game engine. A part of the leg is missing from the mesh. You can fix it by copying the missing polygons from the base body model. Just duplicate them, separate them from the body object, and then join them with the clothing mesh. To get transparency working properly in both Eevee and Cycles, we'll need to assign multiple materials to the model. This is especially important in Cycles since Blender uses it for baking. You'll need it to bake the final body texture that includes both the skin and the clothing on the same image. To do this, create a new material specifically for the transparent part of the kurta and assign it to those faces. You can keep the existing material for the rest of the model. Keeping the skin and clothing textures separate is also very useful if you plan to create characters with different skin tones. It makes the workflow much more flexible. Let's do some final adjustments, starting with removing any leftover skin in Photoshop. Now, since we want to make this character game ready, we need to ensure it's properly rigged. First, reveal the rig and switch it from rest position to pose position in the Properties tab. As you can see, the kurta still needs a bit of tweaking. Select the rig first, then the model, and switch to weight paint mode to make the necessary fixes. Make sure Auto Normalize is enabled in the options. This ensures weights stay balanced across all bones. Just like in texture painting, you can use Paint Mask mode to make things easier. However, keep in mind that you'll need to turn it off each time you want to select a different bone. To do that, press Ctrl, Shift and left-click on the desired bone. You can also smooth out the weights by holding Shift while painting. Nice, it's all fixed. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more. I can also show you how to create realistic retro-style character faces, or even how to build characters entirely from scratch.